Last time in Costanoa, we expanded the city pretty much to the city limits here on these two ends, and then also moved the garbage facility all the way out here to get it away from the center of the city and replaced it with this park right here, as well as a couple odds and ends here and there, such as placing in these telecom towers to give our residents access to the internet, as well as post offices and postal drop-off points around the city. Some of the projects I want to take on today will cost a little bit of money, so off camera, what I did is I simulated a little bit, and I also bumped up the amount of money we're spending on garbage processing to 100%. It was sitting at 70% in the services. And another thing I did was I've set the facility to emptying, and I don't know if that's exactly what's causing the stored garbage to go down. I'm kind of running a little bit of an experiment to see if that is going to help. The other thing is that it could be is its processing speed. So I'm gonna actually turn it off and see if we get below this 1,214 number. But I do now have a sizable sum of money here with 300,000. And I think that's enough to kind of get done what I want to get done in today's episode. So one of those things is I want to fill out this space right here by the small apartment complex we made before with another similar apartment complex. And then I want to replace some of these offices here with the park maintenance building. That's something I said that I wanted to do and then forgot about and just placed offices down. So I want to correct for that. In this area, I want to expand a little bit. So I want to expand the grid this way out to the highway and then continue Market Street on over here and possibly add a few extra farms. I do have a later plan to actually replace these farms and redevelop and then create another town further this way that will be more farming focused. And if I have the money for it, what I'll do is I'll set up some of the initial roads for that, and that'll basically be a highway out to that area. I'll need a lot of money because I'll probably need to buy some tiles, so we'll see if I'm able to do that. Another thing I want to do is unlock the road services so that I can start adding in some street trees around the city. So the very first place I'm going to start is I'm going to go ahead over in this area and replace these offices with the park maintenance facility and then add that apartment complex right here. So that's, again, a relatively simple apartment complex right here. I've just made use of these same 4x2 French buildings right here, and then popped in the park maintenance building over here, and we managed to save one of the office buildings. And overall, just tried to keep the landscaping pretty simple with some lined trees right here, and then just some buffering trees right here. The other thing I want to do while I'm over here is I'm seeing like this space right here. I think that might as well have some sort of tree cover. Probably pretty sparse because this is an industrial area. But yeah, I just want to have something in there blocking from this highway right here. Yeah, so kept it pretty simple around here. I went with alders over here, which is a tree I haven't used really much at all. So yeah, I just want to do something a little bit different on this farm because whoever owns this farm, it's like Lori, would be maybe wanting to make some sort of unique tree line to buffer their farm area from this industrial area. And then on this side, just some basic trees. And I tried to delete things that were maybe encroaching a little bit too much on the highway. And over in like this area by the roundabout, I wanted to leave enough space for visibility around these trees. Even though it's a roundabout and that's not as big of an issue, I did want to make sure I had those clear sight lines down the highway right here. And before I continue on to what's next, I am going to check again back at the landfill, and it does look like the stored garbage has increased by quite a substantial amount. So what I think I have to do is probably start emptying again, and what I'm guessing happens is that this empties to the outside world, so we're essentially exporting garbage. So I think then this processing speed, my guess is that is how much garbage you can process out of the city and put into this dump. I don't think there's actual like how the incinerator will process garbage and get rid of it and produce energy. This landfill will just throw it in here, and it doesn't actually get rid of it unless you deliberately send it to the outside world. That's my guess right now. It was working in the past, so I'm going to do that again because we are full and still having problems at the power plant, which is now running at 54% efficiency, and then also this groundwater pumping station, which is running at 50% efficiency. So I'm going to keep doing that and keep an eye on it. Since we are still positive by a little bit, I'm not going to worry too much about that for now, and I'm just going to kind of leave it on emptying for a while and see what happens. And now I want to turn my attention to this area over here, and specifically to begin with these two tiles. And what that will allow me to do is expand this grid a little bit so that I can add in the football field at the high school, and then I can expand the grid up to this highway again and expand Market Street at least just a little bit so that I know in the future that it's going to extend out this way. And those two tiles will cost 100,000, and I think that'll still give us enough to complete the other projects. And that is about what I want. I'm still not sold on these connections into the highway here, but the placement of the high school is definitely what I was going for. I wanted the seating to be up on this side because the hill is actually going down this direction. So the people sitting over here, if we zoom in, have this view out over the city. I mean, it's not as high up as I was expecting, but yeah, that was the idea, is that they're going to be looking back towards downtown this way. If we look back at the grid overall, yeah, now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these connections are very close. So actually, what I think I'll do is I'll just sever this connection, because it's a little bit too close to that one. I'd rather force people onto Market Street. And with that in place, the last thing I want to do here is just detail out this area right here and then add in some homes in the remaining land. So it was about at this point in my detailing that something was happening outside of my field of view that was going to be a serious issue. As you can see, the city is having a bit of an incident, and I just cannot take this right now. So I'm going to load up an old save and hope that I can mitigate this fire in some other way. Yeah, so that footage you saw there was a city killing fire, and it all started just over here in this area of the city with this one single bush that's on fire, which is actually incredible to me. What I realized is that it was going to take me a very long time to get things back on track after essentially my entire city went up in flames and burned down, if I was going to be able to get on track at all. So what I've done is I've just reloaded this earlier autosave, and I'm going to try to mitigate this fire, and hopefully I can prevent it from destroying the entire city this time. I think one of the problems is that the fire spread very quickly because of the foliage around here, but there's also a lot of very high building density in this area, so I'm going to go ahead and actually just delete these buildings right here, and then I'll redevelop those. So let me unzone that. And then what I will also do is I'm just going to delete all of the foliage back here, and I might go to other places in the city as well and delete some of these bushes that I've got. And that might be enough, but just for completion's sake, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'll unzone this really quickly and I'll rezone that later. But yeah, I honestly could not handle that huge fire, so I'm doing kind of everything I can to get that to not happen again. So if I resume, I think that should actually be fine. I'll go ahead and put it on the 3x speed and see if that is correct. And yeah, so that one bush caused all the mayhem that you saw earlier, and that is absurd to me. Thankfully, I've prevented it this time, and let me just double check. Yeah, so that was the only thing we had going on. And now I'll go ahead and zone this back in, and I'll put in the same zoning up in this area right here, which I believe was North American row homes. And then I'm actually going to redevelop this area right here. I've mentioned this area a lot as an area that could be redeveloped, so I'll just go ahead and do that now. My initial plan with the fire was actually to redevelop this whole area, because it kind of, when I first noticed it, it was engulfing basically this area right here. So my plan was just to redevelop right here, but then it spread to the entire city. So this is gonna have to do it. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna put like one oak tree, and I might look at other places around the city where I can get rid of some of the bushes, because I guess I just go overboard on bushes, and that causes giant fires. Like, I think this would be another area where just a couple of bushes gone will help mitigate those kinds of things in the future, I hope. If I see places like that, I'll just do it immediately when I see it, but I'm not going to go through and do that everywhere for now. So I'll go ahead and get back to my detailing in the other area by the football field. So things are definitely back on track after that, and I'm pretty happy with how this area turned out. You'll notice I basically planted a bunch of trees in this area right here with the place multiple tool, and then I went back and deleted some because of what had happened with the fire over in this area. And then I'm also going to go check back over here at this tree right here, I believe is what it was. No. Yeah, it was this block right here. So we've gotten these homes built in here, a little bit less foliage back here, and I think it probably could use maybe just one more tree, a small one. I know I've just talked all this game about planting fewer trees, but I think that one was kind of necessary. While I'm happy with how this area turned out, I'm just more happy that the entire city isn't burnt down, because that was actually kind of a terrible experience. Like, watching the whole city burn down was, I don't know, it just kind of was sad. I'm noticing right here that, so earlier I tried to extend this road and then it broke the zoning right here. If I zoom in, you can see that, well, first of all, I'm going to delete some of these bushes, but also this landscaping back here is now not butting up against the homes anymore because of how the zoning changed. So I'm just going to plant a couple more trees in here. Okay, and then the next thing that I want to do is extend these streets out just a little bit, and probably I don't have enough money probably to buy this tile yet to justify that. So what I'll do is I'll just extend these two roads out a little bit, and then I think it looks a little bit weird having this farm have some tree cover, but then this one does not. So I'm going to add probably a different tree type right here. And I've just unlocked the road services tab. And what that will allow me to do is place some street trees or some lighting or place crosswalks, all sorts of things. And what I want to do is I want to focus on the street trees. So if I get an overhead view here, I think there's probably a few places I'd want to do that. One, I could do it along this corridor right here and this corridor right here where there's the commercial. The reason I'm actually hesitant to do that is because those are going to be highly trafficked streets and there's a lot of businesses here, and it's pretty valuable to have the street parking there, and the trees will get rid of that. The other place I'm looking is actually this street right here, which is called Cozy Street right now. The reason for that one would be, I actually think that it would benefit from not having street parking because it's kind of a main thoroughfare through the city all the way down here. So not having the parking would kind of signify that. And then it would also make it safer because there's a lot of traffic here, and we don't really want people hopping in and out of their cars along that street with all the traffic that's going down it. So I will definitely start with that one. And then I just want to zoom in and see how that looks. And it looks about half as good as I wanted it to. That's because I forgot that you have to add them to both sides. All the way down, and there we go. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. There is a lot of trees going on in this road as it is, but yeah, I think now the fact there's not going to be any cars parked along this road is good. And then while I'm kind of in this area right here, I want to turn my attention to this roundabout right here. And I think what I want to have there is actually a larger roundabout because this is now going to be a more highly trafficked area, or I intend for it to be a highly trafficked area at least. I want to have like a more reasonably sized roundabout instead of just a small one, which I believe, all right, it's not the small one, it looks like the medium, but I think I'd rather have probably a large one if I can see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that ultimately looks better. And what I need to do is get rid of this path for a moment and then place that down. And then I'll go and place the path back in. And I'm just pausing here because of the fact that this zoning could get messed up. And then what I'll actually do as well is I'll create another connection. It's probably not necessary, but between these two areas right here, I'll take out that tree for it. But I think it's reasonable to have a second connection that goes into this other adjacent apartment complex. And I'd really want that to be actually a little bit further away from our highway if I can get that to happen without taking out too many trees. That'll do. And then I want to do the same thing actually over at this roundabout as well, because this one is also important because it has some freight traffic going through. And I'll probably do a different style of roundabout, this concrete one, because that would allow for trucks to hop over the curb. And it looks like this farm also needs to go a little bit back. And they're probably not super happy about that, but that is pace of progress at work. And because this intersection is kind of all the way on the other side of town, I'm not too worried about that being a roundabout. And if I actually zoom out even further, kind of swing around this way, my only connections into town are actually over here, here, and here. So they're all on this side right here. And there's probably not actually going to be that much traffic going all the way around this way and then joining in on this intersection. They'll probably cut over this way in all honesty. But I have these highways in place just because I think it's realistic to have another way in and out. And in the future, we can expand this way a little bit more easily. In general, though, this highway that's going through our city is not going to really see that much traffic because the way that City Skylines works is that if we pop over here, all the traffic that's going from this node here over to these nodes here is actually going to hop on to this highway that I've made. And that's all this traffic that you see flowing through here. A lot of it, at least, is just going between those entrances and exits. The way that will change in the future is once I get connections out to the East Bay over here, this is where Oakland is, and then another connection where the Golden Gate Bridge is out to Marin County. When that happens, I'll start to see a lot more through traffic through the city. So while I'm not planning for it right now, in the future, I'm gonna have to readjust the way that I've built these highways to accommodate for that so that I don't have a ton of traffic just going directly through my city, or at least if it is going through, it's going through in a logical way. And in San Francisco right now, a lot of that traffic is channeled onto Van Ness Street that's going over to Golden Gate Bridge. And there are no like highways that go directly through San Francisco to the Golden Gate Bridge, or freeways for that matter, highways or freeways. It all has to go onto surface streets, and what is it essentially just like an arterial road that cuts through a city in a sense. And that is just something that I've been thinking about recently. Like the reason that I don't actually have that bad of traffic, even though I have like these highways intersecting directly with my city, is that, yeah, I don't have that through traffic coming through the city. One other thing that I wanted to take care of is over here at our former garbage dump is I kind of left the area right around these tennis courts and the skate park a little bit empty, and I just want to add a few trees to make it look a little bit more natural. Beginning of the episode, I had it in my mind that I wanted to start laying out the plans for a future town to be established somewhere outside of this area. And the conclusion that I came to is that it's actually just way too expensive to do that right now because I don't have electricity or water at any other point in the map except for right here. So I can't really connect to my core services without buying the land to get to another area over here. And the total cost of that was going to be somewhere around like $600,000 to $700,000, and I only have $70,000 right now. So what I'll do instead is I'm actually just going to buy this one tile right here because I know that it's going to be necessary anyways. So I'll go ahead and purchase that one, and that's $64,000. So that pretty much burns the whole budget, and that's okay for now. And the only thing I'll really do there is I'll just extend out Market Street and then give you the general overall vision for where that's going to go. So that's going to kind of follow this contour line, and that won't intersect with where this road's going to go, I believe. If we take a look, if I just bring this one straight out, yeah, so it's not going to actually start going in that direction just yet, but I bring it to about right there. That's probably where it might turn in right onto this contour line, or maybe even a little bit lower, and then go off this way. And the reason I want that is because eventually I want to have another road following up this hill here and going kind of cutting through this way, since that seems like a pretty natural place to have a road going through because it's not quite as steep as going, you know, just straight across the hill or something like that. And I could even bring another one, it looks like, over in this direction as well. So that's the reasoning behind that. I know I'll need that one kind of in the immediate future anyway, so that's why I bought that. And because I have that now, I want to just make some easy upgrades. The first one will be adding in some more farmland, and I want to measure out kind of how far away I want that to be based on the grid that's on this side. So I'll make that measurement and then place down some roads and probably place maybe another farm somewhere and expand these ones as well. There we go. I adjusted some of the farms to better conform to the new grid that I've got over here. And I'm going to leave this land for now because I popped over into the production tab here and we don't really have that much of a deficit in anything in particular. It does look like, what is this one? Coal, I think, because yeah, coal. And that's because we have a coal power plant. I do want to get in the future a couple of like mining oriented builds over in the hills in this area. Part of that's because we need it. The other part is that San Francisco, as many people know, is built on the gold rush. So I think a lot of these hills out here is where some of that mining was done. I'll have to probably look into that a little bit more, exactly where on the peninsula that mining was done. But I'd have to imagine in these hills here, potentially maybe over here. But that's obviously at the far end of the map, and I think that's actually outside of the map, so we're gonna have to probably stick to here and possibly some of these other hills here. And the last thing I want to do is I'm looking here at Belmont Street, and there's definitely a lot of traffic coming over here to our industrial area along this street. And since it's next to these open areas here, I want to add some street trees to the streets. One, to make it look nicer, and two, because it's the same reasoning as over in the other area where these are highly trafficked streets. So I basically want to prevent street parking along at least parts of the corridor, and that'll be like right there. And if I take a look over here, the reason that I'm not continuing those street trees right here is because now we're kind of getting into this like residential area over here, as well as some commercial buildings where it is okay to have, it's okay to have some of that street parking. And it's also intersecting with Cozy Street, which is the other main thoroughfare. So a lot of people will be getting off of Belmont Street right here at this intersection and going likely this way out of town. And while I'm here, actually, one last bit of detailing, because I'm noticing this has not got any detailing in it. I remember this area being kind of a weird area with the zoning, but I might be able to actually sneak in a little bit extra right here. Yeah, so it still is weird, but at least a little bit less so with that change. And that's going to be it for this one. Probably a bit of a shorter episode this time around, but I want to start having more focused builds that I can do in a shorter amount of time. A quick recap for this episode. What I started with is basically just getting a bunch of money together so that I could expand the city a little bit and prep for future expansions. And then I added in this park maintenance building over here, replacing a few offices. This was just changing up something that I had done before, which was placing a bunch of offices where I actually wanted this building in. And then I added this small apartment complex here, kind of a aesthetic extension, at least, of this one over here, but not quite as upscale, I suppose, as this one, because there's no parks over here and more parking and it's closer to the offices. I also, in this part of the city, in its expansion, added in the football field at the high school just across the street with some parking, and then expanded a bunch of low density residential in this area, as well as 2 smaller commercial buildings right there. I also added a few street trees down this main street here, and then along this street that goes out to the industrial area, and changed up the farms over here with the additional tile space that I had. It allowed me to add this street here and then extend Mulberry Street right here, which actually, now that I'm looking at it, should be named Market Street. So that got messed up somehow, but okay, easy to change. So yeah, Market Street was extended, which allowed me to then extend out these other streets right here and create another farm right there. As always, I want to thank anyone who has made it this far in this video, or really given this video or any other video a chance and given it a watch. If you have any feedback about the video, its quality, or any changes you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments down below. But with that, I will see you in the next one.